Yes, hello everyone and welcome to all our West Australian football fans to another edition of Around the WAFL, and this one is a stacked show, we promise you. 5 games for round 18 and a round that could shape up the finals race once again. Round 18 of the WAFL. You can catch us on our socials, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, on YouTube and where you get your podcasts. It's a massive show. Paul Persick with you in the studio alongside Ethan Roth. And Rothy, you can feel the adrenaline all around the WAFL scene. It's a massive Saturday of footy.
Yeah, you can. Stack show is probably an understatement, Paul, so great to be back.
No doubt about it. Of course, WAFL fans, we've got 5 games to preview. We've got East Fremantle's Ben McGuire ready to chat with us in just a moment. And also, the verdict on WAFL Wonderland for season 2024. It's going out in style at the Fremantle Derby. We'll talk to you more about that later on. But here's how you can win big at the WAFL, especially on this big weekend.
Punt from 50, win. Little too into the game, win. Too cocky, almost a win. Risking it all for the glory, win. It's win-win at the WAFL. Great footy, food and entertainment. Find out more at waffle.com.au.
Yes, win-win at the WAFL, and no doubt there'll be some big crowds heading into round 18 of the WAFL season. 5 massive games. We'll preview them all a little bit later on in the show. But time for our guest to join us on the show. He's a big part of the East Fremantle forward line. He's going to be at Fremantle Oval playing for the Sharks in that big derby on Saturday. And I only had a flashback just before we went on air, Rothy. This bloke actually had the gall to dress up as yours truly for Mad Monday last year. I'm going to ask for an explanation on that. Ben McGuire from East Fremantle, he joins us here today. Ben, good morning.
Good morning. How are you going?
Going very well. First of all, can you explain why in the blue hell you wanted to dress up like a 6'4" football commentator that happened to be yours truly? What were you thinking?
I'm not too sure. I had a suit there and I looked at it in the morning and thought, I might as well dress up as Paul Persick, you know. I was like, he's a well-known figure within the footy community and the boys, would get around it. I knew that.
Well, I'm not sure about well-known. I've still got a long way to go, but I really appreciate it nonetheless. But let's get serious here, Ben. It's a massive game on Saturday, the Derby. Your boys are fresh off the bye. And, of course, you've had great encounters with South Fremantle, but they've been a little bit of a hurdle in recent times, with the exception of this time last year when you kicked the sealer to win your first Derby in some 2,400 days.
Yeah, so it's been obviously, I came into the team and we haven't won for, I think, 16 in a row, whatever it was. And it's something that we try not to think about. We just want to play our way and hopefully we can get the chocolates. So last year we just got to keep fighting to the end and make it a hard game. And because it's always a hard game, like no matter where we are on the ladder or where they are, it's always close. And it's just a scrap fight. So if we can just stick to what we believe in and hopefully play the 4 quarters, we'll be all right.
Yeah, well, that's all part of the Derby tradition. Is it as simple as just the start? If you get off to a good start, you know, that gives yourself the best chance because, you know, earlier in the year, it was probably the start that cost you. And, you know, if you had a better start, you might have come away with the win with how close you got it back to. Yeah,
definitely. And, you know, if you give yourself 5 goals behind, you know, you're pretty much giving yourself the game. So the first probably 10 minutes, we just turned the ball over too much. If we can win it and we can be clean with the ball and use it well and not give it straight to them, you know, I don't know what they base their game on, but if they base it off turnover, we just can't give them the ball. If we don't do that, I think we'll be all right.
That's a very good point you make there, Ben, because that was, of course, the key moment in that game, that first quarter when the Bulldogs got away and, you know, you caught up very, very well, but it was always that start that was going to set the fellas back. Of course, a couple of key Sharks, they may be coming back into the side. Matty Jupp, Blaine Boakhurst, Tom Joyce. Could all 3 be coming back for this big game, especially Matty Jupp and Blaine Boakhurst, because they're big role players like Tom Joyce as well, but those 2, they could be huge if they return on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. So Juppy will come back off his concussion. And I'm not too sure about Blaine and Joycey. So we'll just have to see how they train and how they get through the week. But yeah, I definitely know Chappie's back. He was sad to miss out last week off the 3-week protocol because we played on the Sunday, so he missed out by one day
That's
by
right.
playing last week.
Yeah, that's right. And how big is that going to be to have your captain back, your premiership captain back, and in such a crucial game as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be huge. His leadership's really important to our team and our group, and especially last year in our derby, just to stick at, in the last quarter, we just needed to stick at what we were doing and keep doing it in the last quarter, and we ended up winning the game. So hopefully he can play a part definitely this week.
And what's it been like playing with your cousin in the team the last year or so? I think, we obviously see it a little bit of amateur footy, family members, but at WAFL level must be pretty special.
Yeah, it's very special. Playing with him last year was an incredible year, and obviously winning was really special for us and the family. But yeah, it's really, really good. We drive each other's standards at training, and in the off season we do our running together, and it's really good to just keep on top of each other and try drive the standards and try and make each other better. And then also too, enjoy footy and have fun as well together. So we try to bring, Ruben's a bit of a reserve bloke, and I'm sort of the opposite. I'm out there and I bring it out of him as well. So it's really good.
Well, you and Ruben are a great part of the club, and no doubt have served the club very, very well, especially in the last 12 months, coming off a premiership and some very, very good wins as well. Hopefully another one coming on Saturday at Fremantle Oval in the big derby over there. All the best, Ben. We really appreciate your time, and just quietly, thanks for the Mad Monday tribute last September.
No worries. Thanks so much, mate.
That was Ben McGuire from East Fremantle. I still get flashbacks from that. I'm not going to lie. Ben McGuire back in September of last year, but a wonderful player, and he really has performed well over the last couple of weeks. He kicked a couple of vital goals 2 weeks ago against Peel Thunder, and he'll be keen to get out on the field on Saturday for that big derby. And with Juppie coming back, that's a massive boost.
It is, yeah, and he's a live wire, isn't he? And I feel like that's a compliment. If you're dressing up as someone for Mad Monday, that person must be pretty well known and pretty respected, I feel, in the footy industry, as he sort of says.
Well, I do appreciate the compliment nonetheless, but it's all about the stars of the WAFL that are out there on the field, and of course there'll be plenty of stars at Fremantle Oval. Check this out.
Get along to WAFL Wonderland this Saturday to see the Sharks and the Bulldogs go head-to-head in the traditional derby at Fremantle Community Bank Oval. There's loads of fun activities for kids from 2:30. Tickets at waffle.com.au.
WAFL Wonderland, as that great song says, going out in a blaze of glory, and no better place to do so than at the People's Derby. We'll get to that game later on. Let's get to the Round 18 action. Massive Saturday of football. We're kicking it off at 1:10 p.m. live on the AFL app. West Coast and Perth at Mineral Resources Park. If you remember the last time these two sides met, it was a cracker in Northam. The Eagles getting up by just 2 points. And, of course, a draw in round 13 last year, can you believe? I reckon we might get a close one here again. The Eagles and Perth have become a little bit more competitive at this stage in the year.
Yeah, I feel like any time these two teams meet, it's filled with a lot of intrigueness. And, obviously we know the Eagles' availability is sort of under question until, a couple of days out before the game. But the Eagles could actually win their 5th game this year, I feel. And, if you would have said it at the start of the year, a lot of people from West Coast Eagles probably would have taken it.
I would not have believed anyone that said the Eagles were going to win 5 games, let alone win a game this season. But they have been absolutely magnificent. They've really taken the fight to the fellow contenders. They've beaten West Perth, they've beaten East Fremantle and Claremont. So they've got what it takes against any side in the competition. And, if you're 5% off your game, regardless of who you're up against, then you're going to pay the absolute price. And some sides have found that out. And especially with the likes of Sheed and Gaff playing their best at WAFL level. Also, Cohen Livingston shifting up forward, Matty Flynn in the ruck. Chesser, he showed tremendous tenacity a couple of weeks ago against West Perth in that great win. And if they continue to do that under Cole Horsley, who has really instilled a good dynamic at the Eagles, I reckon they could go a long way to getting them victory.
Well, interestingly enough, they have more points for than Perth, but they all have a lot more points against them. So they need to get that balance right.
That's right.
I feel like Perth will also back themselves into redeem themselves from that earlier game against Northam. So I feel like it shapes to be a beauty.
It certainly is. And those role plays for Perth, Constable, also Avery, Thompson, they're going to be be up for a big game as well. Like Constable's been back in good form over the last couple of weeks and at the right time as well. And no doubt Peter German will be looking to him and those key suspects for a big game.
Yeah, and this is a game where they've been matching with teams with 3 quarters, but this is a game I feel like they won't take any result other than a win.
I'd expect a lot of contested ball to be won there as well, because the conditions are going to be a little bit slippery on the weekend as well. There'll be a lot of rain in the lead up. So I reckon it won't be a weekend for forwards, but if it somehow is and the tools get up, who knows? I'm happy to be proven wrong, but the conditions always make it a little bit difficult for forwards at this time of the year.
I feel like maybe small forwards could really work their way into the game in this one, and that could be the difference. Who knows?
Especially Sam Stubbs of Perth. I want to see him in that forward 50 full time. I've said it many times. He is built as a forward full time. Look at the 5 goals that he kicked earlier this season and a couple of bags he's kicked later on. But, he shifted up to midfield, down back. Obviously, they're trying new things, and credit to Peter German and his side for being willing to experiment. But there are some things that work and some things that don't. One thing that does work is Sam Stubbs up forward. And if I was the Demons, I'd shift him up forward. I don't have to say it many times, but I've got to. With that in mind, who wins this one? I can remember you tipped West Coast and I tipped Perth in Northam. You got that one right. What are you going to say this time?
Yeah, I'm going to swing a similar way, and I'm going to say the Eagles.
We're going to say the Eagles? I'm going to go the same way as I did last time. I'm going with Perth, so hopefully we'll equalise it at 1-1. But nonetheless, it's going to be a great game over there at Mineral Resources Park. Get yourself down there for that big game at 1:10. West Coast and Perth to kick off round 18. And then the first of the 2 derbies, the People's Derbies, if you will. East Perth and West Perth at Sullivan Logistics Stadium from 2:10. You can see that one live on Channel 7 as well. It's going to be a big one. East Perth, they want to take their foot back on the gas. They want to get their act together against the West Perth side, who are fresh off the bye and have got nothing to lose at this stage in the year.
Yeah, they might be struggling a bit ladder-wise, West Perth, but it's still a proud football club, and they'll still get themselves up for a huge game against their arch rivals. So, yep, if it is anything like the game earlier in the year, we're set for an absolute belter. Fingers crossed it can be somewhat similar to that. But, yeah, could it be a shock? There's so many unknown questions. But I think West Perth, they'll be looking for a bit of respect from East Perth, and they'll want to make sure that they can somewhat do something to similar to the Claremont did to them. I don't think that might be the case as East Perth look to respond, but I think both sides have plenty to play for in their own right.
Expect both sides to be at their absolute best, for different reasons. Obviously, East Perth, a little bit of soul-searching following that loss to Claremont. West Perth, fresh off the bye. They've blown a couple of games when they've been in good positions. Case in point, the Derby last time out on the WA Day. And, of course, against East Fremantle a couple of weeks ago when they were in a great position to get the points, but unfortunately couldn't sustain it. That's been the problem, their lack of finishing. Both teams just lacking that primal ability to provide the killer punch in that last quarter when the game has been on the line. Look at East Perth in the last few weeks. Bar that one against Claremont because their problem was at the start, not at the finish. West Perth has their problems in the 4th quarter. It's not because of the depth that's there. They've got good depth. They're just not delivering.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's no point. You can have all the supply you want, you can have all the hard work up the ground, but if you're not delivering on the scoreboard, then what does it all count for, as you said?
Harrison McCready, he's been out with injury. I reckon he needs to return. That's going to be, obviously we're not selectors, we don't have to say in it, but we think if Harrison McCready returns, that's a huge amount of tall timber that's going to be there in that forward line for East Perth, and that's something that they have lacked since Mitch Schofield went down with injury early in the season against the West Coast Eagles in a winning side. So if they can get Harrison McCready back, that'll do wonders for the East Perth forward line.
Yeah, well, add stability, isn't it? Even if he is thrown back, as he has done earlier in the year. So, yeah, it's a real domino effect. You get a key defender back, I think everyone plays around you better.
And that backs up the likes of Medhat, Graham and Tedesco as well. Tedesco looked a bit out of place when playing in midfield last weekend against Claremont, and you get the likes of Medhat and Graham who were well held by the Claremont back 6. But if you have the likes of West Perth, whose forward line I can say is still revolving around Tyler Keitel, but he is getting some support from the likes of Jack DeMarte, who kicked 4 goals in a recent game as well. So, they're starting to get some depth in that forward line, the Falcons, but it needs to be more than just Keitel kicking big bags. He's at 50 goals for the season, which is good from an individual point of view, but there needs to be a little bit more cohesiveness inside that 50.
Well, especially if it's going to be wet as well. You can't rely on a key forward to kick bag after bag in this torrential rain that we've been having.
Yeah, absolutely. When the ground is slippery and, it hasn't held up quite well, it is going to be interesting to see how those forwards can adapt as well, and that's going to lift the responsibility on the midfield because we know East Perth have more goal-kicking mids than West Perth at the present time, but the conditions, as we say, are always a great leveller.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, it's you either love it or you hate it, the wet weather footy. But
Absolutely.
either way, it's a spectacle that you can know you're always going to expect something.
And neither side, has been their best at wet weather football. I mean, you look at East Perth against Claremont back in round 10, they lost by 9 points in wet conditions. And a couple of other sides in wet conditions they haven't been able to get the better of. So have West Perth as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they change up their game plan to suit the conditions. With that in mind, who wins?
I think East Perth, but I think it could be a very close one.
I reckon it'll be close as well, but East Perth, they've got to get it together. They've got to get it together, and they've got to get it together starting now on Saturday against West Perth. But nonetheless, it'll be a great derby, East Perth and West Perth at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. You can catch that one on the screens of 7. And then another huge game at 2:30 at Lane Group Stadium. Claremont make the long trip south of the river to play Peel Thunder. Now, Peel Thunder have lost 2 out of their last 3 games at home. So they want to make sure that they can get their act together at home because they've had a few stumbles. They lost to Subiaco and to East Fremantle in the last couple of games at home, even though they weren't the home team against East Fremantle. It's weird to say in 2024. But anyway, regardless of that, Claremont, they can sniff blood, no doubt about it, because of their winning form. 6 out of their last 7 that they have won. I reckon this one could really define either side as true flag contenders.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more with you there. And I think Claremont will be up for the challenge. I think they recognise going down to Mandurah is a hard place to play, and I think they won't be complacent. I think for Peel Thunder, they'll think, business as usual, back at home. This is just a game we need to bank. But yeah, I feel like it could go either way.
You say Peel Thunder's approach, just want to bank the 4 points. I don't think that's the right approach to take, especially when you're at the business end. Top spot on the ladder is still pretty much a wide open race between at least 3 or 4 teams. You can't take this side lightly. You can't take Claremont lightly at this time of the year because they're building something, especially when you have Rogers in your lineup, Bolton in your lineup, debutant Hamish Davis in your lineup. I reckon he deserves another go. Get him in that side. Also, Alvarez, Main Waring, Hardesty, Mountford, etc. You can't take Claremont lightly regardless of where you are on the ladder, especially in this form.
Well, especially how they beat you earlier in the year as well.
Yeah.
Almost 30 points back in round 9. So, yeah, you would think that they'd learn from that in some respects.
Well, 4 out of the last 5 Claremont have won, so they've got a good record over the Thunder in recent times, including that last win on the WA Day weekend. Peel Thunder, I reckon the player that they need to shut down. We spoke with Declan Mountford a little earlier. This week on the Tuesday, they've got a good team side, in Declan's words, but I reckon if there was one that you got to shut down, it's got to be Will Brodie. Will Brodie has been that midfielder that can make or break a game in Peel Thunder's favour. He's been magnificent, not just going after the contested football, but his running carry, clearing the congestion is going to be a key. Claremont would want to make it as contested ball as possible.
Yeah, 100%. Will Brodie, you need to shut him down. You probably can't shut him down entirely. He's still going to have an impact, but I think it's
you can nullify
the effectiveness of what he does, and don't let it hit the scoreboard or anything like that as best as you can.
Either Rogers or Bolton, I reckon, could get a tag on Brodie. I reckon that could be a huge key for Claremont to win this one. Peel Thunder, if they can, if Brodie gets tagged, they can counter that by applying a tag on either Rogers or Bolton themselves.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Yeah, Bailey Rogers, it's interesting. I don't know. I think it would be Bolton more so for that tagging role. I think, obviously they both win a lot of their own ball in their own right, but I think maybe Bolton could be the one, but you wouldn't rule out Rogers in entirety.
No, well, you can't rule anything out in this game because there's so many possibilities and so much importance riding on this game as far as the finals is concerned. But with all that in mind, it's a tough one to pick, really. At Lane Group Stadium, Peel stuttering a little bit, Claremont on rampaging form, but Peel Thunder often hard to beat at home. Very hard game to pick this one.
Yeah, I just have this feeling about Claremont. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm just going to tip them.
I'm going with Claremont, and I'm going with a lot more conviction than what you've just presented there. I'm saying Claremont. It's going to be about 2 goals in it. Peel Thunder, they're starting to have the wobbles, and also keep in mind, should Peel go deep into the finals and Fremantle go deep into the finals, there goes that problem as well. So that could be tough for Peel Thunder. But in this game, we've both gone with Claremont, and to continue on their winning ways and keep their finals hopes alive, it's a ripper game in store. Peel Thunder and Claremont from Lane Group Stadium at 2:30. Be sure to check it out. Game number 4, we head to Bassendean, Steel Blue Oval, Swan Districts taking on Subiaco. The Swans haven't been beaten in 8 weeks, 7 wins and a draw. Subiaco, they got a little bit of respectability back, good win over the West Coast Eagles. And Subiaco, they can really get a big scalp and rebuild some confidence heading into 2025 because they've got some good young players for the future. Case in point, Malachi Champion, who had a serviceable league debut last weekend against the Eagles. So I reckon he could, provide a little bit of extra flair at Steel Blue Oval. I like the way he played in the Colts last year, and I reckon he can bring more of that this week in the main league side.
Bit of spark for sure. I don't know if this is going to be, it could be a sleeper hit. Swans deserve to be heavy favourites, but I think Subiaco Pride Football Club, they only lost to Swans earlier in the year by 11 points.
That's right.
So I think Subiaco are a team where, yes, their ladder position isn't great, but I feel like they still have the pride and they still have, enough to play for and enough to rock up for. So I think they'll put Swans to the test, even though Swans you'd think would be the likely victors.
And what also I think is in the Swans' favour is that they've got more big bodies in that side. We said on Tuesday that Subiaco, okay, they've got a lot of running carry in their side, but they're just lacking those big beastly bodies in that forward line and in defence that can curtail the impact of the likes of Lee Coleman and Wilson up forward, and also Tony Knott in defence as well. So I reckon Subiaco are going to have it tough against those big bodies.
Yeah, I feel like it's just the start. I feel like Subiaco's second halves, I feel like they've been okay, but I feel like it's just the start. That'll be really crucial for them.
No doubt about it. Who's going to get off to that better start? Who knows? Players that could provide a key for Subiaco, if they can get off to a good start, the likes of Lee Kitchen, Clark, the Hickmott boys and Ryan Boychette up forward, because, Subiaco is still going to be without Sokol and Mayo. Who knows? They may spring a late change, but if they're still without those two, then Boychette is going to have to be the one tasked with that great responsibility up forward.
Yeah, a lot of weight on his shoulders, isn't there? And if you get someone like a Passini shutting him down, then, who's going to bob up, from a key position point of view. So that'll be something that, they'll be talking about during the week. I think they'll be, pumping themselves up for this one, Subiaco. And
especially with Bo Wardman being an experienced coach, I reckon he might pull something up his sleeve here and catch the Swans off guard, because he's got a lot of experience, very tactical coach, very calculated coach as well, and he's up against Andrew Prune. It will be a fascinating battle.
Yeah, both coaches have signed recent deals, so they're, long-term for them. So, interesting to see what game plans they put in place.
Who does win? This one might be a tough one to pick based on, Subiaco looking for some respect. They want to be out there for a bit of blood after they got beaten by the Swans back in round 9. But the Swans, they're on a rampage.
Yeah, I think Swans, but taking nothing away from Subiaco, they'll back themselves to come away with an upset. But I think Swans will be too strong, but I don't think it's going to be an absolute belting.
No, it won't be a one-sider. You can bet that. But the Swans at home for me as well. Maybe 3 goals in it at best. And I'd love to see Lee Coleman back off the leash again, because he was held goalless against South Fremantle. I'd love to see him back in form. He's a very prime forward. Swan Districts and Subiaco out at Steel Blue Oval on a Saturday afternoon. Catch that one there. And then the final game of the round. It's the main event. It's the heavyweight title fight of the round. East Fremantle and South Fremantle, the real derby, the People's Derby at Fremantle Oval at 2:30 p.m. This is a derby final. Even though we're not in September, this is a derby final because of what's on the line. East Fremantle off the bye, they can get back into that double chance with a win. South Fremantle, they can't afford to lose, because a loss and a Claremont win will see them drop out of the 5. But both sides, they are hungry for victory and expecting a big crowd at Fremantle Oval.
Yeah, almost a little elimination final. As you said, the players will know that. They know what's up for grabs. And as we said with McGuire earlier in the show, it's just the start for East Fremantle, because they only lost by 14 points. You take away that 5-goal margin, they well and truly could have come away with that, ifs and buts. We don't want to take anything away from South Fremantle with their record in these derbies. But, I think that'll be a full focus thing that they've been, will be drilled into them during the week.
No doubt about it. That start is going to be critical, especially for East Fremantle after what had happened on the WA Day Derby in front of a big crowd over there at Fremantle Oval. One stat I'm really fascinated about is the goal accuracy, 55% to 53 in favour of East Fremantle. Both have got very well-known goal kickers in their side. Of course, you have the likes of Blaine Bokhurst. Could he come back? He kicked 3 goals in his return. Also, John O'Marsh is an absolute freak inside that 50. Montalban can sneak in for a couple of goals. From a South Fremantle point of view, you've got the likes of Dylan Main, who's firing. Zach Strom, if he can get back into some form as well. So it'll be interesting to see if those forwards can deliver.
Dylan Main in particular, I mean, the big bag of 5 in the last outing, and he's just a player, who get himself up for these big occasions, so he'll be priming himself.
Matchup as well that could be a key will be Isaiah Winder and Milan Murdoch. I reckon that's going to be the matchup that could decide the game.
It could, both speedy players, obviously Isaiah Winder's a bit bigger, but those two could go head to head for sure.
Great running, carrying, good leg speed out of the centre as well, so that was also going to be a key. I reckon there's going to be a little bit of argy-bargy in this game. There won't be any love lost between these traditional rivals. And I'd love to see, a little bit of fire come into the game as well. It's a derby. It's a virtual elimination final. It's a heavyweight title fight. Just go in there and give it some. Don't give an inch to the opposition.
I think John Marsh might be at the cold face of that.
Yeah.
He always is with that passion that we speak about. But one thing I will say, I think South Fremantle have a bit more midfielders who can hit the scoreboard.
Yes.
I think East Fremantle need to find a couple of those. Murdoch's a unbelievable player, but I don't know if he hits the scoreboard enough as opposed to someone like an Isaiah Winder if they are going to be direct opponents.
What about Cameron Eardley? He's shifted up to the midfield in recent times. I reckon he could be one that could hit the scoreboard. We also forgot to mention Cody Leggett as well. I mean, he could sneak up and kick a bag of 3 or 4 when the opposition defenders least expect it.
He can. And player I love is Jared Jansen. Arguably
Jansen,
the most versatile player in the WAFL. Can play literally anywhere. Can play ruck, and he often kicks some big goals from outside 50. So maybe he's the one that can provide that spark that the rest of the Sharks lineup need.
Harrison Marsh could come back as well. That will be huge for East Fremantle. If these are 4 players that potentially could come back. Matty Jupp, he will come back. That's a certain. Blaine Boakhurst, Tom Joyce, and of course that big gun Harrison Marsh. That could be huge if all 4 are selected to return.
Yeah, they're in their best handful of players, aren't they? So much experience, especially in big games and in finals. Those guys have done it time and time again. So yeah, that'll be a luxury for East Fremantle.
Solomon James, I reckon, will have his big test in the ruck as well. It's going to be his biggest test against Lockie Blackiston. After the performance he put up against Swan Districts, he'll want to back that up because I touted last Tuesday, he's going to be their first-string ruckman of the future. Lockie Blackiston, we've already said that he's going to be a big star. He's only 9 games that he has played. He's been absolutely incredible for the East Fremantle side in recent times. And if he can get on the board early, Solomon James, dominate the early hitouts, that could go a long way.
It could, yeah. Yeah, it is a finals rehearsal, make no mistake about that. And some players could be feeling it. It might just go up a bit the notch in terms of the intensity.
Oh, we'll go up a notch. I mean, this is a derby, and this is, like you said, a finals rehearsal. I have a feeling, regardless of the outcome, we could see them clash again in 5 weeks' time.
We could, yeah, absolutely.
Harder to pick than a broken nose this game. Who takes the points in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to back the reigning premiers in East Fremantle.
Going to go East Fremantle. I'm saying the same as well, but I reckon it'll be a kick in it. I mean, it's going to be down to the wire. It'll be an all-time classic we're feeling over there at Fremantle Oval. What a game it's going to be. The big derby, the WAFL Wonderland's back at Fremantle Oval as well. And you can also get some great merch right here.
Introducing the WAFL Merch Shop, your ultimate destination for all things WAFL. From jerseys to scarves to caps, show your support for the WAFL in style. Grab exclusive merchandise now and gear up to cheer louder than ever before. Visit shop.wafl.com.au today and let your passion shine.
Yes, shop.wafl.com.au, and dare I say it, we'd love to see the fans, especially in that big derby, repping the WAFL with some great WAFL merch. They are selling like hotcakes, mate.
100%.
Of course, WAFL Wonderland as well, the final WAFL Wonderland of the year. And I'll say this for a verdict, it is a raging success, WAFL Wonderland. The crowds are up as a result as well. Not saying it's a direct result of it, but it's been playing a massive part in the WAFL getting some better crowds in season 2024. And the signs were there from that first Thursday night game. The ripple effect has certainly been felt, and now it gets to go out with a bang in the derby.
Yeah, what a year it's been. And who knows? Could it come into play in finals? I think it's such a popular concept. You wouldn't rule it out. But for now, the derby is where it's going to be, and encouraging as many people to attend as possible.
If it does come back for the finals, if the WAFC, can find a way to, instill it into the finals, I reckon that's going to be a real bonus because finals football, it's a very festive time. September, always a very exciting time. They want to bring in as much people as possible, which they always do when it comes to September action. So I reckon if they find a way to bring it back to the finals, I reckon it'll be a huge bonus. And to have it at a Freo Derby for the second time this year, always one of the biggest games in the WAFL calendar, the People's Derby between East Fremantle and South Fremantle. There ain't no better place to do it than at the Port.
Yeah, fingers crossed it can come back, and it's set to be a killer weekend.
No doubt about it. We can't wait. Round 18, it's going to be a huge one. Make sure you get yourselves to the WAFL this weekend and support your teams. It's going to be a massive round. I think I'll see you at the footy this weekend. It's a massive round, and next Tuesday to recap it all.
Thanks, Paul. Look forward to dissecting it all next week.
No doubt about it. That's all the time we have for today's show. If you missed out, make sure you can catch us on our socials, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also on YouTube and where you get your podcasts. It's a huge round 18. Thanks for your company. We'll be back on Tuesday to recap all the action as we get to the business end in the race to the finals. We'll see you at the footy.